I make mainly paintings and ceramics, and they're all colourful, quite simple. I try and convey like a positive message in my art. Sometimes it's quite overt and sometimes it's a bit more subtle. But it's kind of like visually it's like a simplified universe where colour and form kind of take precedent. There's not a lot of texture or shading or anything visually. And I try and tell jokes, basically. I'm just trying to amuse myself most of the time. I'm trying to make works that I enjoy making, and that hopefully when a viewer sees it, they can see some of that joy, some of that passion. Because I think for me, the art I like seeing the most is things that inspire me to get into the studio and make more art myself. It's where you can see that the person has really had a good time doing it. Not editing yourself, and just, like, for me, I try and draw as often as possible. Usually on my iPad, I'll just make little sketches, I'll colour them in, and then I think if it works at that size and I get something from it, then I'll have to commit to making it as a painting. So it's like it starts off digitally and then it becomes like an analog thing that's made, but all the decisions are made in that digital process. So that's where I commit to the colours, and then it's a case of, this is like my map of the painting and I'm just going to translate it into paint and canvas. Because it's very low risk to make sketches or images on an iPad, but as soon as I've done it, I have to commit to making that as a painting, because that is the primary thing that I do, basically putting human emotions and attributes onto animals or onto inanimate objects. So that's quite often where the humour lies. And everything is just a tool, like the iPad is a tool to use for me to end up with a painting and then to just start that whole thing again. Plus I think at some point you want to touch the materials, you want to get the paint out, you want to mix colour, you want to apply it, and that's where you really lose yourself in the act of making art. Yeah, definitely the colours change, and I think it just gets like a texture. Like, I like to use really thick acrylic, and I mean, you can see when you get a photo of it, it looks completely different because it just tightens it all up and you can't see the brush strokes. But when you see it up close, you can see the fact that there are little like ribbons of paint, and you can see the history of all these decisions that you make. And I used to use spray paint and stencils, and that's all about kind of removing the hand of the artist. But then I realized that that's not the most honest way for me to make a painting, because it's like, it can't be completely flat. It can't be like it's come out of a machine. It has to have that bit of that roughness to it. And when you get the mistakes, that's the really nice part as well. I think I came to it quite late. I didn't get an iPad until, I think, 2019, towards the end of then. And I've been making art for a long time before. But I like the fact that you can change colours quickly, you can develop your palette, and you can make the decisions that, for me, I have to do very quickly. And yeah, I guess it is like it's a very old traditional way of working, is doing sketches and like preparation drawings. And sometimes when I've seen artists work, I prefer the sketches. I think it might be like an artist thing, because you can see that's where the mistakes are and things are a bit, you're just getting information down and you're not being precious with it. And then sometimes people can tighten up when you have to do the thing. Also, a blank canvas is very intimidating. So if you go, okay, I'm not making a brand new painting, I'm just copying something I've already made, it frees you up in a way. And it's just my mode of working. So I know if I create a lot of images, then I've kind of got a responsibility to make these paintings. Otherwise, they'll just live on an iPad, and that's no good for anyone, really. If you give a kid a piece of paper and tell them to draw something, like the sun becomes just a circle with some lines coming out of it, or a person is basically like the same with like some arms or fingers like that. I like that reduction, and the way of, I don't know, just the way I just naturally draw, it kind of lends itself to it. And before I used to do very detailed like rendered drawings and shade them and things, and they were all very small and tight, and at some point I just said, like, to hell with that. I'm just going to put colour down and just do it in this somewhat like instinctive way. It's just finding images where there's something, I don't know, there's just like a spark, there's something unusual or like surreal, but not like really far gone, just like subtly different. And I think that's what I'm really drawn to. If you see a seagull all the time, or if you see, we just get completely used to it, and it stops being an interesting thing. But if you, like, I haven't been to Australia, but I know they have those ibis that are everywhere in the cities, and they call them bin chickens, which I think is like a really like derogatory name for this beautiful bird. If you brought one here and set it free in St Leonard's, we'd all be talking about it. We'd find it's an amazing, beautiful thing. But because there's so many of them and everyone's used to it, they just see them as vermin, as pests. And I think I like to like honour each of those creatures. Something as kind of small or weird as like a crab, that comes up in my work a lot. Because crabs, they just mind their own business. They're just in the sea and they're just part of their ecosystem. But then, I don't know, sometimes people want to eat them or something, which is fine if people want to do that. But I just think I'm going to honour this little crab, put it in a painting, because I'm fascinated by so many animals. And I didn't realise for a long time, but that's a constant in my work. At first, you don't really examine what you're doing, you just do it. And then with time, you look back and realise I've done a hell of a lot of animals. I just think they're really cool. Okay, those three animals would be a bear, a sunfish, which is like the biggest fish in the ocean. They kind of look like a child has just drawn a fish, and they're very mysterious. In fact, someone caught one off the coast of St Leonard's not long ago, like a small one, and they were very confused. They just cast it back. But they're normally in the Atlantic or like Outer Hebrides, warm climates. They're kind of heading that way. So one of those, and the third would be a greyhound, because I just absolutely love those dogs. I think they're almost like a different, they're like separate to dogs in a way, like the way they look and behave. They're more like a cat kind of dog hybrid, and they sometimes you see them playing with other dogs and they just feel like they don't fit in. They're so much faster and they don't really play in the same way. I don't think I could make one thing for a really long time, just like one object. The way I work, it's definitely like spreading the concentration on lots of paintings at once. It's always nice to be starting something and finishing something in the studio, but just doing one little like carving for 5,000 hours, I don't think I could do that. So this one, Every Day I'm Hustling, is a lyric from a Rick Ross song, who is like, he's a big rapper in America, and that was like his breakthrough song, which is kind of ironic because it's basically about hip hop culture in a way, because he's an interesting character. Also, he has the same name as my granddad, which is kind of weird. They're both called Euan Roberts. And Rick Ross, his image was built on the fact that he was like a big drug dealer in Miami, and he never got caught, and he was singing about it in songs. And then it turns out he used to be a correctional officer, and he worked in the prison. And this came out, and everyone was like, "You've just made up your whole image. It's just a load of crap." But his song was called Every Day I'm Hustling. And then this is like a reference to the ridiculous, like, it's like bling. So there was another rapper, he had a dog called Dollar, and he would buy really expensive chains for his dog. And I just thought that was quite funny to put jewelry on a dog. Like, a dog doesn't give a shit that it's wearing like $1 million chain. It probably doesn't even want it around its neck. And these are things that just crop up in paintings that I do. It's all these algorithms that are quietly telling us what to do and ruling our lives in a way. I think the way to not get overtaken by it all is to focus on making your stuff the best you can do it, and realize that Instagram is like a tool. Some people will see your stuff and some people won't. And as soon as you posted it, it's not really yours anymore. And you don't make paintings to get likes, and likes don't equal good art. And also likes don't mean that someone's gonna buy it as well. So there's all these different, I guess, value systems that you can choose if you're making stuff. And I think it's still really important to claw it all back and to have paintings and have people come and see them, and people can buy them if they want. But the most important thing is that, I don't know, just to have the experience of being in the same room as it, and to know that that's where the truest experience lies, because we could see every painting by Picasso on our phone and just scroll through, or you could go up to London and do a sort of pilgrimage and go and see one and stand in front of it and look really closely and see where the paint's been applied and what way, and the framing and everything. And I feel like it's useful, but it's like there's like a finger pointing at the moon analogy, and it's like, that's not the thing. The art is still the moon. Go and see that, get as close to it as possible, and use Instagram. But it's like, if it got deleted tomorrow, if they introduced a subscription and we had to pay £20 a month or something, or if it got hacked and turned off, then would those people still be artists? Would you still feel validated? Would you still have your practice without the likes and the DMs and all that stuff? Because at some point it'll be obsolete, like anything. I think also that society tells us not to do it quite a lot of the time. And we actually, I think it takes people, so many people, for them, they can't get to the place where they say that they're an artist or they're a filmmaker or whatever. And they feel like they've got to live really small, and that it's like a hobby or an interest. And it's like a flame that for so many people will completely die or get snuffed out by all these external pressures. And I feel really lucky and really blessed to have like lived a way that I could just keep it going just about. Because at some point, like years ago, I didn't make any art. I wasn't doing anything. I was just a frustrated artist who didn't make anything, who just felt completely blocked. And then gradually, because I was around so many artists via osmosis and just like probably a bit of like juvenile delinquency that never went away, I just said, fuck it, I've got to just try it and fail like spectacularly. And then I guess you just carry on failing a little bit less until you build the momentum, and then at some point you're an artist and then you've got an art gallery, but you know that years ago you didn't even dream about that, you didn't even allow yourself to think. And I think so many people, unfortunately, don't let themselves think of themselves in that way because of all the pressures of just like living. And I believe in making shit paintings, shit films, shit poetry, just anything, so long as you're making it, because at some point you'll hit a vein of gold and then you'll find your language and you'll really find the value in it. But you've got to make all the rubbish stuff first. Take the doing seriously, but don't take the outcome seriously. Don't even think about the outcome, because that takes care of itself. It's whatever surface, whatever tools. And I feel like it's so stupid if people are like, oh, stay in your lane, stick to painting. They're so boring. Like, I feel like people who do that, you're just projecting something onto them, and they're saying, don't try it, don't see yourself as other things. But if you're an artist, then you're already like a made up thing. You don't get anointed an artist. You can get a degree, but it's kind of meaningless. You just it's more of an attitude, and you have to make stuff. Otherwise, I think you're like, you're not paying your dues, really.